Welcome to New Kings and Kingdoms Part 2. Today we will see how the Cholas, the new kings, were found in South India and how they expanded and other activities about Cholas. So the topics which we are going to cover here is the Cholas from Uraiyur to Thanjavur and the temples and the bronze sculptures, agriculture and irrigation lands, administration of the empire, types of land, and inscriptions. Now let us see how the Cholas have started. Now the Cholas you can find in Uraiyur to Thanjavur, and we are having a well documents in the history of South India which says about Cholas. There were two chiefs families, Muttayur of Thanjavur and Vijayalaya of Uyyanur. Muttanur he was a subordinate to the Pallava kings of Kanchipuram. Vijayalaya he captured the delta from the Muttayar in the middle of the 9th century and he built the Thanjavur and in Thanjavur he built a temple for goddess Nisamba Suddini. Now let us see some of the famous Chola kings. And to the successor of Vijayalaya, they conquered the neighboring regions and the kingdom has grown in size. Even they were able to defeat the Pandyas and the Pallavas. Rajaraja I was considered the most powerful Chola ruler and he expanded and controlled over most parts of the areas. And Rajaraja's son Rajendra I, he continued his policies and he even conquered the Ganga Valley, the Sri Lanka and the countries of Southeast Asia. And they also developing an aviation for these expeditions. And Cholas they built lot of temples. And even the bronze sculpture was very famous during the Cholas. And we find big temples of Thanjavur and Gangaikonda. They were built by Rajaraja and Rajendra. And Chola temples were nuclei of settlements. And you can find they were the centers of craftworks. And the temples were donated by land by rich people and even the king. And whatever was produced in the land, it went to the maintenance of the specialists who live in the temple. We find many people who were living in the temple, like the priests, the garland makers, the cooks, sweepers, musicians, and dancers. So, in during the period, the temple it was a hub of social, economic, and cultural life, and they made bronze inscriptions which were very famous, and they were considered as the finest images in the world. Now, agriculture. Most of the achievements of the Cholas were made possible only to the development of agriculture. So, we are having Kaveri, and the Kaveri, before joining the Bay of Bengal, it was dividing into small, small streams and it was depositing, and the land was very, very fertile. And Cholas they gave a lot of importance to agriculture and they cut the forest, they cleaned and they level it, and this land also was brought under agriculture, and canals were constructed to carry the water to the fields. And they realized that in many cases it was necessary to water the crops artificially. So they followed a varieties of methods for agriculture. In some areas, the well was dug, and in other places, huge tanks were constructed to collect the rainwater. And the king he looked after the irrigation works like planning, organizing, laboring, and even resources. Now let us look into the administration and the empire. The king he had a council of ministers and he had a strong army and navy. And the empire was divided into mandalams or provinces. Further, it was subdivided into valnadus and nadus. And we find the people who farmers who were living here, and they were very prosperous with the spread of irrigation. And the groups of such villages, they formed a large unit called nadus. The village council and the nadu, they performed several administration functions, including dispensing uh, justice and collecting taxes. Now, there were different types of lands which were donated during Chola's period, and they were given different names. Now you find here lands which were given for non-Brahmins, lands gifted to Brahmins, and the lands which were given to school, temples. So you are having, they are called by different names. Brahmadevas, Shelbogas, uh, Devadanas. So they had different names. And if a person, what were the qualification required to become a member of Chola committees? So to stand in the election also, they should have many qualification. So they should be the owners of land. They should have a own land and they should be paying the land revenue for it. And they should have an own house. And the age limit was between 35 to 70 years. And the person who is standing for the member, he must have the knowledge of Vedas and he must be well versed in administration matters and be honest. And if he is a member of any committee in the last 3 years, then he cannot stand as a member again, and he has to submit the accounts including details of his relatives also. And women could not participate, and here elections were purely in a lottery system. In a mud pot they used to write the names and they used to ask some person to remove it, so it was a purely a lottery system. So in this way we saw about the Cholas, the work, the different types of temples and how they developed the agriculture and all. Okay, thank you, children.